Good day everyone, I am Danny Jane A. Gabasa from BS Ed 2 English from section Confucianism. So for today's video, I will be discussing the development of Philippine literature from apprenticeship period to contemporary period. And then, during the 90s, English became the official medium of instruction in Philippine schools, and the army men and their wives became the first teachers. In 1901, the Philippines Normal School was founded to train the Filipino teachers to take charge of elementary education. Thomas, Army Transport, brought 600 American teachers to the country. They introduced English and American literature to the Filipinos. And these teachers are, which is known for us now because of their literary works, like for example, William Shakespeare, Geoffrey Chaucer, Mary Shelley, and many more. In 1910 to 1935, this was the period of apprenticeship or imitation. During this period, the Filipino writers imitated the American and the English writers. This fact is highly surprising because early writers were college students or young graduates whose literary education had been largely confined to American and English authors. And during this period, the University of Philippines was founded in 1908 and it became the center of literary effort. In 1910, the first issue of the UP Folio came off the press. This publication was recognized as embodiment of the early attempts of Filipinos at self-expression in English. And also UP Folio was replaced by Philippine Collegian. Other publications that introduced Philippine literature in English to the public were Philippine Review, Independent, Rising Philippines, and Citizens. During the 1920s, the Philippine Herald, the first Filipino day in English, was founded, and it gave financial reward to writers in English, especially in the short story. In 1921, the American Folk Roll Society published Filipino Popular Tales, edited by Dean Fassler. The collection included the work of Fassler students. In 1925, it marked the inauguration of the period of apprenticeship. And other journals followed, and there was a market for Filipino literary output in English, but still limited. In 1927, the UP Writers Club was founded and began publishing The Literary Apprentice. It became the most prestigious college literary publication in the country. The Bureau of Education published Philippine Prose and Poetry, prescribed as a high school textbook. The short stories during this period were either romantic tales of the past with legendary figures, or were imitations of plot and themes from American and other foreign sources. The Philippine Free Press, the first literary contest in the field of short story, and short story became the favorite form among Filipino writers. And the Free Press published the first anthology of Philippine short story written in English. The most significant short story produced during this period was Dead Stars by Paz Marquez Benitez. It was published in the Philippine Herald on September 20, 1925. Her fellow writers immediately recognized the story as an incomparably superior to all other Filipino short stories published up to then. The poetry of the apprenticeship period was dominated by sentimental love lyrics. Verbal exuberance made the poems artificial and insincere. Sursum Sarda is the first known Philippine poem in English, and it appeared in the Philippine Free Press in 1907. The first notable collection of Philippine essays in English is Thinking of Ourselves in 1924, compiled and edited by Vicente M. Hilario and Eliseo M. Quirino. It is the first notable collection of the Philippine essays in English, and the essays dealt with Philippine traditions, history, religion, philosophy, ethics, literature, arts, politics, and government. And the play during this period was highly emotional and not intellectual experiences. It has melodramas or broad comedies. American influence in the Filipino drama was less discernible. Its contact with American plays was extensive, and foreign plays were often staged in Manila. However, drama had difficulty in presenting Filipino experiences. And the early novels in English were sentimental. It has cultural basis for literature was too weak to support the making of a novel. Zolio M. Galang's Child of Sorrow is the first Filipino novel in English to be published in 1924. Period of emergence. It is in 1935 to 1945. Jose M. Hernandez describes this period as a time of self-discovery of rapid growth. Hernandez proceeds by enumerating the qualities of the period. The writers consciously and purposefully to create a rational literature. The writers had gained full of control of the English language and could successfully manipulate it as a literary medium. Experimentation with different literary forms and techniques and moods was the fashion. The three groups of writers emerge. It is social consciousness, craftsmanship, and determined to explore local color. There were many factors in which lead to flowering of creative energy in Philippine writing. Nevertheless, Herbert Sickeneger, S.J., points to the following. In 1937, the Philippine Book Guild was founded. Its purpose was to produce literature and create a reading public. In 1939, the Philippine Writers Guild was established. The creed of members was to develop a common cultural consciousness among Filipinos. The Free Press, the Graphic, and the Philippine Magazine followed a policy of providing ample space for literary work in English. And also the Commonwealth Literary Awards, established in 1940. It gave the first substantial prizes to meritorious writers. And also the policy adopted by newspapers to issue weekly supplements when literary works were published. And the Japanese occupation of 1941 to 1945 brought this flowering of the Philippine literature in English to an abrupt close. And the short story during this period was the early didactic stories and romantic tales quickly gave way to stories about farm life and city life, the problems of society and human hardships. And the poetry is, the literary output was rather meager, although there seemed to be genuine desire to create new poetic modes of expressions. And the essay during this period was a group of essayists banded together to form the Philippines Writer League. They were animated by the belief that literature conditioned society. The drama. The Philippine drama in this period was English lagged behind in development compared to other literary forms. And the novels was the novel of Juan C. Elias, His Native Souls, won the first Commonwealth Literary Award in 1940. This novel tells a Filipino repatriate who, having education abroad, find himself a stranger in his hometown. Contemporary period. The flowering of Philippine literature in the various languages continue, especially with the appearance of new publications after the martial law years and the resurgence of committed literature in the 1960s and 1970s. Filipino writers continue to write poetry, short stories, novellas, novels, and essays, whether these are socially committed, gender ethnic, related, or are personal in intention or not. Marco Pineda Ginto sa Makiling is the first work of note that appeared after the Second World War. In plot, it holds close to the mode of romantic fantasy traceable to awites, corridos, comedias of the Balagtas tradition. And Lazaro Francisco, the eminent Tagalog novelist of the pre-war years, was to continue to produce significant work like Bayani ng Nagpatiwakal in 1932, Ilaw sa Hilaga in 1948, Sugat sa Alaala in 1950, Maganda pa ang Daigdig in 1956, Daluyong in 1962. Of course, the Filipino writers has become more conscious of his art with the proliferation of writers, workshops here and abroad, and the bulk of literature available to him via the mass media, including the internet. The various literary awards, such as Don Carlos Palanca Memorial Awards for Literature, the Philippine Free Press, Philippine Graphic, Home Life, and the Panorama Literary Awards encourage him to compete with his peers and hope that his creative efforts will be rewarded in the long run. With a new requirement by the Commission on Higher Education of teaching of Philippine literature in all tertiary schools in the country, emphasizing the teaching of the vernacular literature or literature of the regions, the audience for Filipino writers is virtually assured. And perhaps a national literature finding its niche among the literature of the world will not be far behind. And once again, good day, and that will be all. Thank you.